You are listening to MFM 92.6. Move to the music.
Ipiano iyathandwa eMzansi, okay? This song is called Gwelanga, Basi M Touch Ranger featuring T-Man Express and Lee McCrazy. What a vibey way to start the show. It's SiyakhulaLive on MFM 92.6. We're here on your radio as we like to do every Wednesday evening between 6 and 7, having conversations that inform and transform, and music that powers us and ignites us. Welcome to the show. I'm your host for the evening. Katlego is my name, and a very big shout out to the guys who are stepping out. That's Vilnay and Zico on the Lift Club. They're always hot, and they've got more for you tomorrow as well between 3 and 6. A very good evening to you, and welcome to the show. It's 13 after 6. You are right in time. Welcome to it. It is so good to be in the pleasure of your company as always, and as we like to do right here on SiyakhulaLive, we're having transformative conversations as well that moves us and our communities in very positive ways, right? And the show is proudly brought to you, as we like to say and acknowledge, proudly brought to you by the University of Stellenbosch's Human Resources Division, as well as the Center for the Advancement of Social Impact and Transformation. And coming up on the show today, we are looking ahead to Brain Awareness Week that is happening next week from the 10th to the 16th of March, which aims to increase public awareness of the progress and benefits of brain research. And so this evening we are in conversation with Dr Olivia Matshabane, who is a neuroethics researcher from the SU Department of Psychiatry. Dr Matshabane shares her insights and her passions really on the importance of developing and promoting culturally and contextually relevant neuroethics. Neuroscience, neuroethics is a conversation this evening. You can be part of it as well. Join us on our WhatsApp 0744400926. That's where you can find us and let us know and tap into this conversation around why you should be interested and take a much more keener interest in this topic and subject of neuroethics, neuroscience as well. So that's the conversation this evening on SiyakhulaLive. Welcome to it. It's going to be a lit, transformative and engaging show, as always.
Move to the music. Right here on MFM 92.6.
And of course, as we speak, many are mourning the passing of one of music's angels, Angie Stone, who passed on this past weekend following a tragic car crash. Angie Stone was a pioneer of rap music that began with a female rap trio, The Sequence, and ultimately led to her solo career that really defined neo-soul. Angie Stone dies at the age of 63. But as we all know, her music will live on. May she continue to rest in peace. Here she is.
Stellenbosch, Kamandi, Clutersville. We've got you covered on 92.6. MFM 92.6. Move to the music.
That we do. We've got you covered on 92.6. It's 20 minutes after the hour 6 o'clock. That's Angie Stone, No More Rain, on your radio. Beautiful song, beautiful song, right here on MFM 92.6. Moving to the music of those who are now no longer with us, but of course their music will continue to nourish our souls. And on those cold, rainy, down days, you know you've got the company of some of your music from Angie Stone. So may she definitely, and may her soul continue to rest in peace. And that moves us to a very important part of our show as well, where we get to learn and engage through dialogue. And this evening, I am so humbled that I have a guest in studio. I always like it when guests can join us in studio and make the trip to wherever we are. We've got Dr Olivia Matshabane in studio this evening. We're chatting all about neuroethics on the show today, looking ahead to Brain Awareness Week that is happening next week from the 10th to the 16th of March. Dr. Olivia Matshabane is a neuroethics researcher right here at the Department of Psychiatry from the Stellenbosch University Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences. Dr. Olivia, thank you so much for making time. Welcome to SiyakhulaLive.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Katlego. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm so happy to be here.
It is lovely to have you, and you must speak into your mic.
Okay.
There we go. There we
go.
The mic is the friend.
Yes.
Or even something even other than more intimate. You must be as close as kissing. Dr. Olivia, thank you for your time. And I want to maybe, neuroethics, brain research, such a big conversation, such an intimidating conversation to a lot of us, a lot of people. And even when I was preparing for the show, I thought this is a deep dive, even for me. This feels like a deep dive as well. So maybe let's start with your interest then in this area that is considered a deep dive for most of us. How did your interest in brain research start? And the fact that you took it so seriously to then take it all the way to practicing and being a profession in it.
Yes, thank you so much, Katlego. So I really want to start off with kind of giving a bit of background in terms of my own sort of journey. And, a lot of the reasons why we pursue certain careers relate to personal reasons, right? So I am from Alice Etiken in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa.
Eastern Cape, stand up.
Representing. And in my community, I come from a small village called Engele. And coming from that context, when I was quite young, I was able to see different people having brain and behavior related conditions around me. And one of the main issues that stood out was that there was not enough services and research that related to brain and mental health in the particular context. And so with that, I also then had my own personal experiences through, different mental health experiences that I had. And I realized again that, mental health is such an important topic. And I'm speaking about mental health and brain health. They are two separate things, but they are related. And so, looking at the broader scheme, I then went on to study psychology because I was fascinated by the brain, by the mind and behavior and how it impacts our behavior. And that's sort of how my journey started. I was exposed to different ways of thinking about the causes of brain and mental health condition, particularly in our African context,
right?
Where we know that there's not just the biomedical way of thinking about brain and mental health, but also the cultural,
for sure,
ways of understanding,
spiritual.
Yes, exactly. So all of that kind of informs the work that we currently do, because we're aiming to make sure that when we do research in our context, in Africa, in South Africa, that it is contextually and culturally relevant.
So you're a neuroethics researcher.
Yes.
What is neuroethics all about?
So as we are increasingly getting a better understanding of the brain through neuroscience or brain science, if you'd like to call it, research, we're getting to understand more about specific brain-related conditions. And through that process, we're also establishing more and more at a rapidly fast-paced technologies that are being used either to assess or to intervene and treat brain conditions. And with those interventions that are coming up, there are some ethical questions that we ought to be thinking about as a society. Not just the scientists who are really on the quest to understanding the brain, but also us as a community, because it really affects our sense of being human, what we understand about being human. And so neuroethics then looks at what are the ethics, what are the legal, what are the cultural, and even, the philosophical, societal implications of that brain science research. What are some of the challenges that we see and things that we can anticipate might be future ethical issues that we want to address ahead of time,
right,
as far as possible.
Like what would they be? I mean, I can imagine it's such a fascinating space to think about, the philosophical, the ethical, the cultural, the community ethical, pulse around neuroscience research. What kind of complexities have you perhaps encountered? If you can maybe share some of those with us.
Yeah, so I think one of the main issues in the global neuroscience arena is the issue of diversity and inclusivity. And what we're finding is that in terms of both the scientists that are doing the work, but also the participants that are being involved in the research, there's very limited representation of Africans, for instance. And that then has implications in terms of how effective some of the technologies could be. So what we don't want is we don't want to invest a lot of money into developing technologies that are helpful to treating some people and not helpful for treating other people in the same way, right? So there's that question of the effectiveness of the technologies, but also there's the question of access, right? So some of these technologies are extremely expensive, costing millions of rands and US dollars. And so then from that small village that I come from, how can those people also have access, right? And that's around equity and distribution and justice. So these are some of the ethical issues that come up in neuroethics as well as some others that I'm sure we'll get into.
So you see, the problems that you had highlighted or spotted or lived through, or experienced as a young person growing up in the Eastern Cape have come, full circle. Like you are now sitting with it as even a scientific and an ethical challenge.
Yes.
Now in your professional life.
Yes, exactly. So, there are many, many issues that are emerging and that we haven't thought about from the African context. Even issues around the technologies collecting data, so brain data, and how, that informs on privacy. So do I want somebody sitting in the US, for instance, to have access to my brain data, to my thoughts, to, things that I hold dear, and maybe there are some sacred cultural things that we don't want everybody to know. And so these are some of the questions that we think through in the neuroethics work that we're doing.
We're chatting to Dr. Olivia Matshabane. He's a neuroethics researcher right here at the Department of Psychiatry in the SU Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences. Now, Dr. Olivia, maybe ask you as well the message this Brain Awareness Month, this Brain Awareness Week rather. Why is it important that each of us, whether you are sitting at home, in this evening and you're thinking, but why is SiyakhulaLive taking such a keen interest on Brain Awareness Week? Why is it so important that each of us takes this keen interest in brain research?
Thank you. That's a very, very important question. And I really want to take the time to kind of take it back to each and every one of us to think about our brain health in terms of a kind of a holistic perspective. So our brains form a very important part of our lives and really inform a lot that we do, that we're able to do as human beings. And, taking time to take care of your brain, doing things like exercising. We live in a world where we constantly, particularly in my field of academia, but also in many other fields as well, we're constantly moving, we're constantly working. Are we taking the time to pause, to rest? Sleep is one of the most important things. So thinking about our sleep health, how often, how long we sleep for, because that impacts on, again, our brain health and mental health. So I think Brain Awareness Week really tries to remind us to take care of our brains, to pause and make sure that even the things that we eat are healthy and consume. We know that things like alcohol, for instance, and other substances do impact on brain health as well. So thinking about all of those dynamics and taking that very seriously, because particularly in the long term, we want to make sure that we are preserving and making sure that we protect ourselves as far as possible from any kind of brain-related conditions.
Like, I think I may have read somewhere that the stroke at 50 maybe started at 20.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes. So we're seeing a lot of conditions emerging at a much earlier stage. And, some of the things that could be impacting that may be really the food that we're eating, the substances that we're exposed to, climate, the environment. So there are various things that could be impacting our brain health. And it's really important that we take the time to do the research, read up about brain health and how we can best take care of our brains.
I'm going to ask you, because I'm a foodie and I really do also like to just take a keen interest in what I eat. And I'm conscious of just making sure that I eat a little bit of everything. Your top brain food, Dr. Olivia?
My top brain food, I would say nuts.
Almonds?
Nuts. I do love almonds.
Okay.
And also drinking lots of water is something that's really important. But that would be my top food that that comes to mind.
Nuts and water. We're back with Dr. Olivia. Remember to also weigh in on the conversation, 07444 00926. You are on MFM 92.6.
Move to the music. Move to the music. Right here on MFM 92.6.
We're going to take a short song break. The song is called Me and You by Thames. Enjoy. It's 33 after 6.
The best tunes to make you move to the music. This is MFM 92.6.
We are having the absolute most fun in studio this evening. We're chatting to Dr. Olivia Matshabane all about brain health and taking care of our brains this evening, looking ahead to Brain Awareness Week. On the back of that was Thames with Me and You. The album is Born in the Wild. You are on SiyakhulaLive, by the way. It's 37 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock, almost 20 to 7. When I'm out of here at 7 o'clock, Lisedi will take you through until the hour 9 o'clock. The Daily Vibe with Lisedi. Always a good time. But we still have Dr. Olivia Matshabane in studio, still unpacking the science behind brain health and neuroscience and neuroethics as well. Now, Dr. Olivia, I wanted to ask maybe around, you have an article around promoting diversity and inclusion in neuroscience and neuroethics. And in this article, you touch on your research that explores the stigma that is associated with attributing a disease to genetics among South African Xhosa people with schizophrenia. Can you share some of those problems and some of the problems that are inherent in that research that you uncovered and some of the findings there?
Thank you so much for that question. So, yes, this project that you are referring to was really my PhD research, where we were looking at the effect of individuals, amaXhosa, who have a diagnosis of schizophrenia, receiving a genetic explanation for their condition. And one of the things that I want to first of all highlight is that currently there's ongoing research to try and understand the genetics mechanisms of schizophrenia and other conditions. And I'll say a little bit about what are the symptoms of schizophrenia in case some people may not be too clear on that. Some of the symptoms of somebody who has schizophrenia may be delusions, experiencing delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech and behavior. And some negative symptoms include sort of low mood and energy and limited speech, so not speaking very much, as well as extreme agitation and being irritable. Okay. And so these are just some of the symptoms. One of the main symptoms that I haven't mentioned that also came up was around people feeling as though somebody is controlling them, using some device, for instance, to control them. And so these are some symptoms that somebody may exhibit if they have schizophrenia. And one of the things that we, again, from a cultural perspective, were able to identify from the research was that sometimes people were attributing the condition to bewitchment, maybe somebody poisoned them.
Okay.
So that's sort of the cultural explanations that came up. This was in addition to thinking about it from also a lens of lifestyle choices. So, for instance, somebody may have used certain substances like marijuana for a very long time, and they may think that might have caused their condition. And the other factor that came up were some psychological factors such as extreme stress through their childhood, for instance, that may have impacted, and other environmental factors. So what came up really from the work was that there are a range of explanations that people have for developing a condition such as schizophrenia. Right. And one of the things that we cannot assume is that somebody may attribute it to one thing only. But one thing that is important to think about through all those explanations is stigma. So stigma is highly prevalent amongst people who have brain and mental health conditions, but especially conditions such as schizophrenia, which are associated with some of the symptoms that I mentioned. And that's one thing that we were trying to kind of understand. How do these participants experience stigma, and how, what would potentially be the ways in which stigma could be reduced, both internalized stigma, so the stigma that they have towards themselves, maybe they blame themselves for whatever may have occurred to result in the condition, but also stigma from the family, from the community, who may not understand the experience that they have, but is judging them essentially based on the behaviors that they observe. So those were some of the core things that the research really aimed to understand and to provide some insights from our context, because again, this work hasn't been done much in the African context. And also what was unique was that I was doing the research as Umxhosa, so understanding really the cultural background and not just thinking about it from a literature perspective.
Right. Would you say, there's a crisis, a mental health crisis, or the lack of mental health services in communities?
Yes, I think that we are definitely, the World Health Organization has indicated that on the continent of Africa, we have 100 times less mental health services than we actually should. And, it's very, very difficult to identify spaces where people can access free mental health services.
Absolutely.
But they are so important. The budget that we have for mental health in the country, for instance, is very limited. And so that impacts then on the capacity and the ability to provide care to people who really need it in the communities.
Paints a very, very worrying picture. Indeed, is Dr. Olivia Matshabane, who's a neuroethics researcher here at the Department of Psychiatry at the Stellenbosch University Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences. And I think maybe that's also kind of the benefit of universities, is that, not only for the research, but I think students here, when you come to university, the resources I come from Soweto, maybe we may have not have resources at home to see, to access mental health services, but you come to a university and you are better, there's better resources, and you get to see, you're better able to access mental health services at a university. So for your 3 or 4 years at university, you have access to mental health services. So I think, in that way, I think universities are also contributing to that element as well. Absolutely. And I definitely want to encourage those who are thinking about accessing mental health services and really struggling to think about where to go. Private psychologists and psychiatrists are, well above 1,000 rand for an hour session. So, it can be very costly. But most of the institutions in the country, as far as I know, have mental health services that they try to make available for the surrounding communities. So that's something that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. And it's something that I think, in addition to the student and the staff access to mental health that the institutions provide, they also do a lot of community service and engagement, where they try to really provide care to members of the surrounding communities, because we realize that really there's a real need, and that's the beauty of having those spaces. Yeah, I think universities are actually such critical spaces, like, platforms like this. We also get to share information and be a center for also disseminating information that goes into, thinking about how do we redress stigma in our communities, and how do we have more information around that. Absolutely. But also, you speak, a lot of this need to develop this and promote culturally and contextually relevant neuroethics. And I think you've really shared with us how important that is. So how does neuroscience begin to take that seriously, this need to include African people in neuroscientific research? What do our academics need to do differently? Our funders need to do differently? Our community stakeholders, what do they need to do differently in neuroscience to advance this agenda?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. I think one of the main things that we definitely need to start off with in our own context is acknowledging some of the difficulties that we've had in our history. We're coming from, colonialism to apartheid to lots of trauma and violence that people, particularly in this country and on the continent, have experienced. And that all impacts how we go about the neuroscience work that we do. So, for example, in the Department of Psychiatry, where I'm based, a lot of the work is focused on trauma and thinking about, even transgenerational and intergenerational trauma. There's some colleagues who are looking into that. And I think, the histories and also the ways in which people have moved, for instance, from the rural communities to townships to environments that also impact on their brain and mental health. That also informs, right? So there are a number of things, including the limited access to, again, health and mental health services throughout their life experiences, and some of the socio-political and cultural factors in our context. So when it comes to then taking contextual and cultural relevance seriously in the context of neuroscience, is we really should be thinking about what is it that this person who we are maybe enrolling in the neuroscience research or brain research, if you'd like to call it, what are their experiences and how could that have impacted on their brain and mental health condition? Absolutely. And culture that I mentioned is really important because it informs on, whether somebody will take the treatment, for instance, that we provide. It can inform on that. It can inform on, how they take the treatment. How does it kind of align with their cultural understanding of the condition if they may be seeing traditional healer as well and receiving some treatments there. So there's a lot of factors that sometimes aren't as transparent in the work that we do for various reasons, some relating to stigma. But I think what we really try to promote is for people to neuroscientists and brain and mental health scientists to ask those questions and to be open to hearing what people's approaches are to dealing with the challenges that they have, because it really does inform on how they will progress in their recovery and the work that we're doing. So we have a concept that we've myself and other colleagues have been kind of thinking through around cultural humility. So how do I understand, how do I kind of think about and can appreciate somebody else's cultural understanding of this condition, and how does that inform then our discourses and our approach going forward? So there's a lot to unpack, but I think context matters. It matters a lot, and we are definitely looking at we're definitely doing this work, but looking at additional funding mechanisms that are in alignment with that, because we need to fund and do research that aligns with the priorities of the people on the continent, right? The people have the conditions, but oftentimes we actually do align with the priorities of the funders who aren't necessarily thinking about the local context that we are operating in. So there's a range of ways in which we can do that. One of which includes involving people with lived experience in sort of designing our research studies and making sure that they are in alignment with their needs and priorities.
Right.
And there's a lot of colleagues who are looking at this and really thinking about approaches on how best to ensure we do it in a contextually and culturally relevant way.
Context matters. Context matters. Dr. Olivia, it's been a fascinating conversation. I am pretty sure we're going to welcome you on again because we really want to stretch this out for as long as we can. But before I let you go, we are also commemorating Human Rights Month in the country this month. So maybe some of your hopes, for human rights in the field of neuroscience.
Thank you. That's a very, very important question. So in the context of human rights, one of the main things that I would like to see is making sure that people in the most ruralist of spaces and most remote spaces have access to effective technologies that are ethically designed and ethically administered in order for them to have better brain and mental health. So I think access and making sure that those who need the interventions the most do have access to those interventions because it's the right thing.
Dr. Olivia Matshabane, everybody.
Stellenbosch, Kamandi, Cluttersville. We've got you covered on 92.6. MFM 92.6. Move to the music.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for joining us this evening, Olivia. It's been refreshing, eye-opening, grounding, and also I think something for us to chew on a little bit and something for each of us to take home, including drink more water, eat your nuts, and maybe put down the phone before we sleep. Thank you so much for making time to chat to us this evening.
Thank you, Gutlecha. Thank you very much. And thank you to the listeners for listening in on this discussion. And please do check out our research in the African Neuroethics Research Group and various other groups on the continent that are trying to do this contextual and cultural relevant neuroscience and neuroethics work.
That's the Africa Neuroethics Group.
Yes, African Neuroethics Research Group in the Department of Psychiatry at Stellenbosch University, and we're in the South African Medical Research Council's Genomics of Brain Disorders unit.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a thrilling conversation indeed. Let's get back into the music. It is MFM 92.6. It's 7 minutes to go till I'm out of here, but I will not do that until we play some more music. A song that I absolutely love. It's called Utando, because why not? SOX Matrix, Soulful G, and Sean 101. Enjoy.
You are listening to MFM 92.6. Move to the music.